Hello, I'm Adam from Pocono Update. Today I have Donald Bradley, the CEO and founder of Birchrock Capital. Donald, how are you doing today?
Good, good. How are you, Adam?
Great. I want to kind of jump right into it here.
Sure.
Understand that you're a crypto investment firm. Can you explain what a digital asset is to everyone here?
Yeah, so great question. So digital asset, it's going to be a peer-to-peer transaction that happens between two parties without the need for like a central authority in between. So essentially, let me break that down a little bit for you. If I'm in the U.S. and you're in China, I could send you your digital assets directly to your wallet. You being overseas or cross borders, it's great because low cost. You're talking about pennies on the dollar for the transaction fee. Very fast. So within a couple of milliseconds, you'll actually receive the funds, and it's going to be very secure and very safe to be able to send that money over this new technology over the blockchain. It's a very, very exciting time because with this, all you need to get started is going to be a cell phone and an internet connection, or a computer and an internet connection. um, and it's great because in the current day, there's products out there like Fluxa, for instance, and it allows you to purchase lunch at Chipotle, for instance, right? You can get coffee at Dunkin', or even go on that fancy date.
You kind of mentioned a little bit there about some of the benefits of digital assets, but what are more? Like what is better to use a digital asset over the dollar?
Yeah, no, you're really hitting there, asking great questions here. So I would say protection against inflation is really going to be one, right? So inflation has been a hot topic in the United States, and when you're using digital assets, I think it's going to help with that, right? With hedging against inflation. When you have the dollar, for instance, there's a central body called the Federal Reserve, and they oversee monetary policy over the dollar. When you talk about crypto or digital assets, Bitcoin, for instance, 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence that will be minted. There will never be a central authority that will ever be able to mint more than that. So 21 is the cap. So as Bitcoin becomes less and there's not less availability of it, essentially the price should kind of rise in the future. So it's kind of a supply and demand problem here. And I just think that that's one thing to highlight, for instance, right? Another is going to be security. Security, it's very safe to go ahead and transfer my digital assets from one wallet to the other. It's very fast and reliable. You're talking about milliseconds. So traditionally, right, when I'm sending money to a friend or a family member, I could do it through a wire transfer. I could do it through an online transfer through a bank. I can go to the bank and do it. There's so many different ways, Venmo, right? But with the digital asset space, I mean, you're talking milliseconds, right? Fast speed, low cost, and those are some of the benefits. Just to kind of hit on some of those. So.
So the market seems to be growing fast for digital assets and cryptocurrency altogether. So if someone were who knew nothing was to try to get into it, what would they need to know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information out there. What I want to kind of highlight is, I mean, digital assets are here to stay. It's not going anywhere, right? Institutional investment has been into this. You have Warren Buffett talking about these assets, and Jamie Dimon from Chase, right? So, a couple of things I'd say: read "The Truth About Crypto" by Rick Edelman. I think it's a very important book just to give you like a basis about crypto, explain it really well, give you some terminology there. Read the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi. It explains like the fundamentals of this of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, digital assets, where they came from, and the importance. And I think the third thing is really just go down a rabbit hole. For us, back in 2009, I was so intrigued with this technology. I built my own mining rig. I was mining Bitcoin out of my kind of apartment at the time. Didn't know what I was doing. It was a small Reddit kind of subgroup that I was in, and I was just trying to understand what this really meant. So go down a rabbit hole, get very interested, and just it's a fascinating thing in technology that's going to change the world. So I think those are some things to definitely do. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We could definitely help you out and give you some insight for sure.
Absolutely. And we know the medium exchange for the dollar. Like, you have your banks, you have your credit cards, you have your ways of transporting that money.
Sure.
So what is the medium of exchange for cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so what medium exchange in general, right, is like, you're going to the store, you're going to go exchange your US dollars for eggs, right? You're using that monetary value to get something else in return. So that's really what medium of exchange really means. For digital assets, it's the same thing, that you're able to actually go to any kind of brick and mortar store, you can go to any online retailer, you can actually transfer money between friends. Just being able to transfer some value that you have to a friend, a family member, a business, for instance, and be able to receive something back. So, and then just kind of going off of that, right? I think it's important to understand how money has transitioned over the years, right? So, I mean, back maybe 75,000 years ago, right? Our ancestors were using money in a different method, right? They used maybe tobacco leaves and maybe cattle, for instance, to kind of exchange, right? One wanted the other, one wanted the cattle. So, It's transitioned over time because people were moving around the world. It wasn't really realistic to carry tobacco leaves in my pocket, so I think you saw money change over time to become more efficient, and to be able to fluctuate over time as demand and supply increase or decrease, right? So
So, from what I understand, there are two types of money. There's the regular money that we're aware of, just spending it. But then there's also a term called sound money.
yes.
Can you explain what sound money is does?
Yeah, I don't know. Really great question. So, sound money has a few characteristics, six, to really kind of hit the nail on there. The first one has to be durable. It needs to be able to not depreciate inequality over time, right? The second needs to be divisible. So, it needs to be able to be cut into smaller amounts or smaller units when you're doing these exchanges. It has to be fungible, right? Right. So, with that, like when you go to Europe, for instance, or you go to another country, and you're able to take fractions of US dollars for a euro, for instance, you need to be able to do that efficiently. So, needs to be fungible, needs in that aspect. It needs to be portable, right? So I talked about earlier when it came to like tobacco and the cattle. You need to be able to take this unit of measure, this monetary value, all over with you, all over the world. It needs to be able to be recognizable. So you have to understand like what this is, like what am I actually using in exchange for another thing of value, and it needs to be scarce. You don't want to have a like an infinite amount of this monetary value. You have to have a finite quantity so that you're able to have that supply and demand problem actually play out and things appreciate over time, right? So things those are the characteristics of sound money.
So, as you know, currently the economy isn't doing the best.
Sure. Yeah.
So, can you explain how crypto will be the thing that brings us back to a sound money?
Yeah, so digital assets and crypto will bring us back to sound money because one, there's no overarching government or body that will oversee it. For instance, you're talking about technology that's verified on the blockchain. Everything's transparent, low cost, low fees, and in general, for the most part, most of these projects are very reliable, secure, and built in a manner to facilitate value and to bring value back to the end consumer. Um, so I think that's one thing. For instance, right? I think that with inflation, for instance, that the big inflation problem that we're dealing with today, it's going to help to curb some of that because a lot of these different projects, when they actually come out in the pre-programmed software code that's written, there's also going to be caps on all these different cryptos and digital assets. You're never going to have a central authority go in and be able to create or mint more, like I was explaining earlier in the segment.
So, as we know, there's this thing called the gold standard.
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit about the gold standard?
Yeah, Adam. So no, that's a great question. So the gold standard, it came about just being able to tie an amount of gold to an amount of fiat currency, right? I think back then it was great. It was something that actually worked really efficiently, right? But I think over time, as we noted earlier in the segment, it became difficult to try to transfer or move around gold with fiat currency. And I think more countries over time were trying to actually redeem their gold reserves, which actually became a problem. So in 1971, it was definitely doxed, and the gold standard went away. And what happened is like the central bank was able to actually print, unlimited amount of money, agnostic of whatever gold reserves that they actually had. So this is important to understand, right? Because if the central bank or any overarching government or authority is able to just continuously print money, that will definitely lead to issues with monetary policy and inflation and different items down the road, which actually could impact, any citizen's hard-earned money, right? So I think it's an important concept to really understand and grasp, and um, I think that the future with digital assets and cryptocurrency will help to kind of curb and change some of that. So,
So, Don, you mentioned fiat currency there.
sure.
Could you explain what fiat currency is defined as?
Great question. So, just fiat currency is going to be any monetary value or unit of measure, or for instance, like a banknote that's assigned to a country. So, for the U.S., for instance, it's going to be the United States dollar. For Japan, it's going to be the yen. So, those are actual monetary banknotes or dollars that are assigned to that given country, and that's what would be fiat currency. That's how it's defined.
So, Don, that's all the questions I have about cryptocurrency, but I actually would like to know more about your company, what you can offer to everyone.
Sure, thank you. So at Birchrock Capital, we're an investment management and consulting firm, and we help institutional clients as well as retail clients with research. We help them with custodial of these digital assets. We help them with building portfolios and understand like which assets are actually very important to either invest into or what does it mean for value for society. So with all these different things, I think there's so much with the digital asset space that can be very confusing and hard to understand. Right? I think current day there's approximately 12,000 plus cryptocurrency digital assets out there, and it can be very difficult to decide which ones are going to be of value in the future or which ones may be around like in the next 6, 12, 18 months, right? So all of that we help the investor make the right decisions. We help provide the right information and give that extra insight that may not be easily digestible or understandable by the average person. So I want to thank you for the time here today. It's been great, and future segments to come to be able to explain digital assets and cryptocurrency better.
Absolutely, Donald. I really appreciate you being here. I look forward to having you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam.